our careers really have been linked forever. And in WWE, even if you just look at the last 8 years, from the moment I started in NXT to now, even when we're not on the same show, our careers are somehow parallel.
Everybody here knows exactly how long the story between you and me goes. It started 14 years ago in Montreal. In every church basement, in every community hall, it was you and me, and you and me, till we took it to the US, till we took it to England, till we took it all around the world, till now, where we're in the main event in Montreal, in the Bell Center.
Some rivalries are built on hate. This one, it was built on hope. Some stories explode like fire. This one, it simmered like destiny. In wrestling, we love contrast, light versus dark, face versus heel. But what happens when the story isn't about opposites? What happens when it's about parallels? Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn aren't enemies. They're not even friends. They're forces, colliding, overlapping, pushing and pulling through time like twin stars orbiting the same sky. Messi and Ronaldo, Goku and Vegeta. Different styles, different paths, same goal, same obsession, and same war. Just fought from different corners of their soul. You don't understand Kevin Owens without understanding Sami Zayn. And you don't feel Sami Zayn unless Kevin Owens is somewhere nearby. Because when one flies, the other falls. When one wins, the other bleeds. And when one breaks through, the other is always watching. They came up in the same hotels with the same hunger with one promise. If one of us makes it, we both make it. And they did. They made it to the big time. They main evented WrestleMania together. They made magic in sweat-soaked indie gyms, NXT takeovers, and Bloodline chapters. But it was never about the gold, never about the spotlight. It was about the fight. Not against others, but against themselves. Against doubt, rejection, time, pain. This isn't the story of two wrestlers. This is the story of two ideologies. Two ways of navigating the same damn dream. One loud, one quiet. One forceful, one patient. Both real, both right, and both necessary. This is the story of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Not as opponents, not even as friends, but as parallel truths in the same war. Always colliding, never separating. Fight forever, together.
Traveling together and only together. I was there when he got married. When I was in the hospital when his first son was born.
We became pretty close.
We grew up together. We really did.
Before the arenas, before the WrestleManias, before the crowd chants and the championship moments, there was silence. There were cold drives, stale gas station sandwiches, and two kids with broken dreams duct taped together. Generico and Kevin Steen. A masked luchador from Montreal who didn't speak, and an angry French-Canadian brawler who won't shut up. It sounds like a sitcom pitch. It became one of the greatest wrestling brotherhoods of all time. They weren't supposed to make it. They weren't 6'4" muscle machines. They didn't look like WWE's next big thing. They looked like two guys who got lost on the way to catering and decided to start a match instead. But what they had was real. In the indies, the lights don't shine bright. You don't get pyro, you barely get paid. Sometimes the ring is uneven, sometimes there's no ring at all. Sometimes the crowd is 6 drunk locals and a guy eating nachos out of a frisbee. And yet, every time they stepped between the ropes, they gave it everything. Not for fame, not for money, for each other, and their love for pro wrestling. They were opposites in every way. Generico flipped, Steen stomped. Generico smiled, Steen snarled. One moved like a comic book hero and the other like a kitchen brawler came to life. But deep down, they carried the same ache, the same obsession, the same need to prove the whole world wrong, because the world had written them off. Too short, too foreign, too indie, and too weird. But every hotel room they split, every floor they slept on, and every damn handshake from a promoter who paid them in exposure, all of it built something between them that most wrestlers never ever find. They weren't just a tag team, they were a lifeline. If one of us makes it, we both make it. It wasn't a corny locker room mantra, it was the promise that kept them alive when the dream fell dead, when the bookings dried up, when the road got too long and their backs got too sore, when doubt creeped in like rot. That sentence was the only thing that was holding the walls up, and they both believed in it. They believed in it differently with their whole heart. El Generico believed in heart, in good, in earning it. Kevin believed in fighting for it, in kicking the damn door open and demanding it. They were two philosophies stitched together in duct tape and wrestling tape. Both beautiful, both right, and both incomplete without the other. Ring of Honor, PWG, Dragon Gate USA. They tore through every indie that would give them a chance. Tag matches, ladder wars, emotional one-on-ones. They'd bleed together on a Saturday night and drive 10 hours together by Sunday morning. 1 minute, they're hitting brainbusters through chairs. The next, they're sharing a bag of Cheetos in their car, broke, exhausted, and happy. Because they were building something. Something bigger than bookings, bigger than belts, each other. And then came the moment. The dream called. WWE. First, Generico got the call and Kevin didn't blink. He didn't get bitter, he didn't spiral. He said, go. Because that's the promise, isn't it? If one of us makes it. And a little while later, the call came for Kevin too. And now, they weren't just kids in hotel rooms anymore. They were heading to the big leagues. Not because the system wanted them, but because they forced the system to notice. Two guys from Montreal, one in a mask, one in a hoodie and basketball shorts, both carrying a legacy that started in silence, in struggle, and in love. And they made it together. Not as a tag team, not as a packaged act, but as two stories written in the same ink. And the second they stepped into the WWE system, everything changed. Their friendship would fade, the betrayal would come, and the paths would split. But they would never stop orbiting each other. This wasn't a beginning. This was the moment the world finally caught up to the story that started long ago, in a cheap hotel room with a cheap dream and a promise between two kids who refused to break. If one of us makes it, we both make it, and they made it. But fate, it had other plans. Sami came in first, he lost the mask, found his voice, and became NXT's throbbing heartbeat. The guy shouldn't have made it. Made everyone believe. Every entrance, every elbow, every let's go Sami chant. It was like watching a kid finally get picked first in gym class. He wasn't a powerhouse, he wasn't a monster, he was just real. And real is dangerous in WWE because real hurts. He fought, he clawed, he gave us classics with Cesaro, Neville, and everyone in between. And finally, after all the losses, after all the close calls, he did it. Sami Zayn won the NXT Championship. The crowd erupted, tears in his eyes, a moment carved into history. And then, Kevin Owens walked out. The pop of joy turned into silence, the screen faded to black, and when it came back, Kevin had murdered him. Powerbomb right onto the apron. Sami's celebration wasn't just ruined, it was erased. And that's how Kevin Owens debuted in WWE. Not as a friend, not as a sidekick, but as a reminder. You made it, but don't forget who got you here. And that's the first real fracture. Because Sami Zayn still believed in heart, but Kevin Owens had already turned to war. What followed wasn't just a feud. It was a philosophy clash wrapped in ring ropes. Kevin steamrolled his way through NXT. He wasn't trying to just survive the system, he was here to break it. Powerbombs, sneers, brawls, he was Chaos Engine in basketball shorts. In less than 3 months, he was standing face to face with John Cena on Monday Night Raw. Meanwhile, Sami, still hurting, still humble, still trying to climb. But here's where it gets wild. They both ended up in the same place. The John Cena United States Open Challenge. Sami Zayn versus John Cena on Raw. Kevin Owens versus John Cena on pay-per-view. Two best friends, two dreamers facing the same man on different nights with completely different energy. Sami walked in with awe, Kevin walked in with malice. Sami was honored, Kevin was insulted. Sami fought to prove he belonged. Kevin fought to show Cena didn't. One bowed before the system, the other kicked the system in the face. Parallel, always, never the same. And that's what made it hurt, because as Kevin rose, Sami stalled. Not because he wasn't good, but because his way was slower. He wasn't stepping on necks, he was still clapping hands. Kevin won the NXT title. Kevin Owens beat John Cena clean in his first match on the main roster. Kevin Owens was holding gold while Sami Zayn was still holding his dream like it might break. And here's the thing, Sami wasn't weak, he wasn't soft, he just wasn't Kevin Owens. Kevin forced things, Sami waited for them. And in wrestling, waiting will get you past. Their feud carried into WWE. No masks, no apron power bombs this time, just two men with history too thick to fake. And they beat the hell out of each other. And then they did it again and again. And it was never about wins or losses, it was about identity. Sami still believed there was a right way. Kevin knew there wasn't. And even when they weren't in the same ring, they were still connected. When Sami was smiling through the pain on SmackDown, Kevin was yelling through the pain on Raw. When Sami got his first big pop, Kevin was already holding his first main roster belt. When Sami lost to Nakamura in his NXT goodbye match, Kevin was already working Cena. Parallel, always, just a few steps apart. They weren't fighting each other anymore, they were just existing next to each other. Like two versions of what could have been, two sides of the same road, one blazing forward with fire, one limping forward with faith. You can call it booking, you can call it creative, but the truth? This was the system showing us something deeper. That success comes in different shapes, that pain wears different faces, and sometimes when you split the dream in half, only one side gets to shine. For now, because as much as Kevin looked like the star, as much as Sami looked like he was fading, you could feel it. Somewhere down the line it was going to flip, it had to, because their story doesn't move in a straight line. It loops, it collides, and it echoes, and they were far from done. This wasn't just a rivalry, this was fate in two forms. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, just still walking the same road. Not side by side anymore. Not yet. Same matches. They weren't in the same stories, they weren't even in the same world. They were both on WWE's main roster, but only one of them mattered, and it wasn't Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens was on fire. Universal Champion within 2 years of debuting. Handpicked by Triple H. Crowned on Raw in that fatal 4-way. Remember that pop when Hunter turned on Rollins and handed it to KO? That wasn't just a title win, that was a statement. Kevin Owens wasn't just there, he was next. And then the Jericho thing happened, the festival of friendship, the best friend friendship turned betrayal angle since, well, Kevin and Sami. Except this time, KO wasn't the betrayed. He was the one doing the stabbing, like always. Top tier matches, top tier segments, Universal title run, a WrestleMania match with Jericho, a face of a company type arc. And where was Sami? Sami was dancing. Literally. It became a punchline, overly animated, talking in that forced maniac cadence like he was in an improv class, cutting promos that started with, "You know what, I've been thinking," and ended with him getting punched in the mouth. He wasn't being treated like the guy who took Cesaro to the limit. He was just getting bodied by Mike Kanellis. He wasn't fighting for championship. He was fighting for airtime. And the worst part, he was making it work. Because Sami Zayn can make anything work. That's both his gift and his curse. He leaned into it, the goofy shirts, the exaggerated gestures, the overselling. He took what they gave him and gave it more life than it ever deserved. But deep down, he knew this wasn't what he came here for. This wasn't why he wrestled in barns with Generico masks in a dream. This wasn't what was promised. Because while he was bumping for Bobby Lashley's sister, Kevin Owens was brawling with Shane McMahon in Hell in a Cell, working with Vince, headlining shows, being feared. The distance between them got wider, not physically. They were sometimes on the same brand, but spiritually. One was the hammer, the other was a joke, and it hurt to watch, because we knew who Sami was, and it was not this. You ever watch someone too talented to fail just flounder? That was Sami during this phase. Every time he spoke, you saw the passion, but nobody ever listened. By the time he sold, you saw the commitment, but the crowd didn't care. And meanwhile, Kevin, he was shifting again. The prize fighter, the authority guy, the family man, the anti-hero. He had layers, he had weight, not literally. And the weight earned him another main event, another feud, another shot, while Sami was getting booed just for existing. Let's not sugarcoat it. Kevin Owens was being treated like a proper main event star. Sami Zayn was being treated like a prop. One was building a resume, the other was padding other people's. And the WWE machine made it worse because it wasn't just creative, it was a narrative. KO's story was power, takeover, run through, burn bridges. He looked like someone who could run the whole place. Sami's story was a struggle, just trying to stay afloat in a sea of louder, stronger, more favored talents. And what made it brutal was that they never acknowledged it. WWE never leaned into that contrast, never gave us that layered storytelling that they had in their hands. Because deep down, they didn't see Sami Zayn. They saw a utility player, someone to fill in the gaps and keep the show moving. They forgot what he was. But Kevin, he never did. Because even when they weren't crossing paths, even when they weren't tagging or fighting, KO was always watching. Maybe not on camera, but you felt it. That tension, that tether, the crowd could feel it too. Why isn't Sami doing more? What happened? Why doesn't he get the same push? And then you would hear that voice in your head go, because he's not Kevin Owens. But you knew that wasn't fair, because they're different. They've always been. But the truth is, they are equal. And they just weren't treated that way. And yet through all of this, Sami never quit. He never phoned in. He never broke on screen. He absorbed every single bad segment, sold every bad angle, took the boos, took the silence, took the disrespect, and he held on. Because that's what he does. He holds on. While Kevin kicks the door down, Sami waits outside, bleeding, still believing, still thinking maybe the system will reward the good guy too. And that contrast, that's the heart of their story. Kevin fights, Sami survives. Kevin conquers, Sami endures. Two men, same dream, one treated like a king, the other treated like a clown. Until one day, the clown would stop dancing and everything would change. But for now, one sword, one sank, and the distance between them had never ever felt so far. This for once Kevin just had to watch. The Bloodline storyline wasn't supposed to be his. It was Roman's kingdom, Jay's rebellion, Jimmy's loyalty, and Solo's silence. Sami Zayn, he was the comic relief. He danced, he tried too hard, he yeeted when no one asked, he wore that oversized honorary Oos shirt like it was the suit made of hope. He was supposed to be a footnote. But then the crowd changed. They laughed, they listened, and they chanted. Because somewhere in between the handshake with Jimmy, the hug from Jay, and the heartbreaking silence when Roman gave him the chair, Sami Zayn became the most beloved man in wrestling. And Kevin Owens wasn't in the story. The man who used to break everything to get to top now stood still and watched his brother become everything he had once been. Not with a pipe bomb, not with a betrayal, but with empathy, with heart, with hesitation. Sami Zayn got over not by fighting, by caring, by waiting. It was the exact opposite of Kevin's rise. And it was working. And that's the magic. Because these two, they're never in the same place at the same time. Not emotionally, not spiritually. They're like seasons. One warms up while the other freezes, then it flips, always parallel, never aligned. Kevin watched the rise of Sami Zayn, and he felt the tension. Because he knew Sami better than anyone. He knew how much it cost to get there. He knew how many years it took. How many nights Sami spent as a joke, a clown, a segment killer. And now, he was about to become the center of the industry. And yet, Sami wasn't complete. Because deep down, he knew. If this was real, if this moment mattered, Kevin had to be a part of it. Because Kevin was always a part of it. So slowly, beautifully, they stitched him back in. Sami and KO, face to face. Years of scars sitting between them. No yelling, no punches, just pain. And that line, "You're my brother and I love you," the crowd didn't cheer, they felt. Because this wasn't a wrestling segment. This was a relationship broken in front of thousands. And Kevin, the man who never showed weakness, blinked it all in. Did he forgive him? Not right away. Because Kevin isn't a hug it out kind of guy. He needs blood, he needs trust, he needs war before peace. But in the end, they stood side by side. WrestleMania 39. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus the Usos. The main event of night 1. The final chapter of the Bloodline's tag reign. Two brothers, not in gimmick, not in storyline, but in spirit. The ones who started in hotel rooms and gas stations now closing out WrestleMania. Together. But here's where it gets wild. Because once again, as they hold the gold, the parallels split. Sami stayed in the story, world title aspirations, Gunther, Intercontinental Championship classics, promo battles, Montreal tears. His stock never ever dropped. The crowd adored him. He evolved. Kevin, he drifted again. Still respected, still loved, but not central like Sami. It was the inverse of Phase 3. The roles reversed. Kevin didn't become a joke. No, he's too good for that. But he became the background. Sami, for once, was the one they invested in. And Kevin just kept watching. That's their story. One moves forward, the other pauses. One climbs, the other waits. Not because one is better, but because life is cruel like that. You don't always rise together. Sometimes you take turns being the hero. Sami's rise wasn't explosive. It was slow, earned. Every segment, every stare at Roman, every tear in his eye, it felt earned. He didn't punch his way in. He loved his way in. He cracked the bloodline with empathy. He broke the wrestling's coldest empire by being human. And that's the part Kevin couldn't touch, because Kevin burns bridges. Sami, he waits by them. They weren't enemies anymore, but they weren't a team either. They were two different ways to survive this business, and somehow, they were both still standing. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, no longer chasing the dream, living it. Just not together, not yet, because the next chapter would take everything. And only one of them would be standing when it's over. WrestleMania 39 was not the end. It was never the end. It was just a pause between the storms. Because after years of drifting, clashing, circling, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens were finally aligned. Tag champs, main eventers, brothers, not in name but in history. And they earned that spotlight with everything they'd been through. From Barnes to Mania, from blood to gold. But the magic of KO and Zayn, It doesn't last. It never lasts. Because there are two parallel truths, and parallel lines don't stay close forever. Eventually, they drift. After WrestleMania 39, that's exactly what happened. No fights, no betrayals, just distance. KO went to one brand, Sami went to another, and the first time they were both thriving individually. Not because of flips, not because of false finishes, but because Sami did what Sami always does. This wasn't a man wrestling for a title, this was a man wrestling for meaning. And across the brand, we started Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes in the same year. Two legacy builders colliding in a feud that felt real. KO, the fighter with nothing to prove but still something to say. Cody, the storybook hero with everything to lose. It wasn't about titles, it was about heart. KO threw fists, Cody threw fire. And those matches delivered. They were both in their bag at the top of their game, carrying different brands, telling different stories. But still, they echoed each other. Fast forward, Elimination Chamber, Toronto. A pay-per-view. But for these two, it was a confession. Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens. No belts, no factions, no distractions, just the two of them in their country, in their prime, in their truth. This was their WrestleMania. It wasn't a feud, it was a test of love, of limits, of legacy. Because that's what they do. They don't fight to win. They fight to remind each other why they're still here. That match, it was iconic, and I don't say this word lightly. That feud might have been built on improv, but it felt too real to every single one of us. And most importantly, it felt too real to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And in their hometown, in front of that crowd, it was special. It was something different. The crowd chanted "Fight Forever." But this time, "Fight Forever" wasn't a chant. It was a promise. It was a request. Wrestling doesn't let you rest, and stories don't stop. Unfortunately, WrestleMania 41 was coming, and both men were finally on the cusp of their ultimate chapter. Kevin Owens on the verge of facing Randy Orton. A match built on respect, on fire, on venom. KO wasn't just here to work, he was just here to remind the world that he's still one of the best ever to do it. A long-term storyline that has been going on with Randy Orton. But then, unfortunately, injury. Neck, KO out. Just like that. No promo, no farewell, just silence. The prize fighter sidelined, the dream paused. And it hurt because Kevin Owens doesn't get quiet emotional moments. He gets fights, he gets wars, but this was out of his control and everybody else's. Before once he couldn't punch through the pain. Sami Zayn, he's still here. And he's still fighting. He missed WrestleMania, sure, but his story is still not over. He has to win the big one. Not just for himself, not just for his family, but for the legacy he and Kevin built together. The road they started together, it's still going, but right now, he walks it alone. That's the beauty of this phase. It's not about betrayal. It's not about titles. It's about what's left. One man recovering from the worst blow of his career, the other standing at the edge of greatness, hoping he doesn't fall again. Because they're not just tag champs, they're not just rivals, they're ideologies. Kevin Owens is fight, the need to smash through, to defy, to hurt before getting hurt. Sami Zayn is faith, the need to believe, to endure, to trust that the long road will eventually lead somewhere great. And wrestling? It needs both. This isn't a fairy tale, this isn't a feel-good ending. It's a moment in the middle of the storm. KO is in recovery, Sami is in pursuit. Both broken in different ways, both unfinished. But no matter where they go, no matter what brand they're on, no matter how far apart they seem, they will always find their way back to each other. Because Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens aren't just wrestlers. They're two truths. Their philosophies, they're the two sides of the same scar. Parallel paths, fighting forever, together.